The P wave is popping, kicking off the whole damn thing. The QRS comes next, making ventricles sing. It's to the T segment follows up. I hope it's in the line. If it's high, likely that it's cat lab time. T wave kicking at the end, resets the whole damn heart, and then we find ourselves right back at the start. Pump it.
Okay, guys, so welcome back to ECG Extravaganza. Really excited because today we're done with the P wave, we're done with the PR interval. What was that? So we're going to move on now to very exciting things, the Q wave. Yep, the Q wave is very exciting. It's the first wave of the QRS complex, which makes sense. And it's also something that can be normal, but can also be what we call pathological, where Q waves can represent a problem, usually ischemic or dead myocardium or heart muscle. So the Q wave in our normal ECG that we've been looking at in lead 2 is usually a small negative deflection that occurs after the PR interval, or the flat part after the P wave. The first negative deflection before the R wave would be called the Q wave, and we can see here that I've highlighted it sort of in the solid as I have for the other parts of the ECG as well as we've gone through. So the Q wave normally occurs in a normal ECG where there's no pathology. You kind of get that quick deflection away from lead 2, which is kind of due to how the whole, what's called the His-Purkinje system here, or the sort of highway of nerves through the myocardium, how it conducts very quickly. You can initially see a bit of depolarization away from the lead before the big bulk of the ECG as the ventricles contract. When we start to see problems with the heart, where we see infarcts, you can actually see this Q wave get quite big and deep, especially in areas where we don't normally expect a Q wave, because the depth of the Q wave will change depending on which lead we're looking at, which view of the heart we take. I'll try to illustrate that here, sort of looking at this little view of the heart. And what I've done here is I've just drawn kind of a very kind of crappy picture of the ventricles, where this is sort of meant to be the right ventricle and this is meant to be the left ventricle. And let's say we have our ECG right here that's just kind of looking up this way at the heart, okay? And so we're seeing this wave of depolarization come towards the heart, and that should normally be a positive depolarization. But there's also still a little bit of depolarization that goes away from this lead, especially as the right ventricle and some of the septum continues to depolarize as well. Now, as this depolarizes, normally that's kind of buried in the fact that the left ventricle is really muscular. Most of that depolarization is still going through the left ventricle. But what happens if we have an ischemic left ventricle, where this part dies due to lack of oxygen or whatever, and you end up with an ischemic part of the heart? All of a sudden, what you basically have created here is a little bit of a window that sees the rest of the heart through this dead heart muscle and this dead tissue. In this case, we don't get as much of that positive deflection coming towards this lead because that part is dead. It's not conducting anything. But what we still see is we still see all the stuff that's going away from that lead. And when we do so, what we'll see is we'll see these Q waves get bigger and deeper and potentially wider as this heart muscle dies. So depending on the lead we're looking at, it gives us an idea of where that damage may have occurred. So here, for instance, where we've drawn it, this area is damaged, so we're seeing the Q wave because we're still seeing those depolarizations going away from this lead. If we move that lead up here, we wouldn't see a Q wave because we still have normal muscle here that's healthy, and we're still seeing the bulk of that depolarization going that way. So we're mostly going to have positive deflections up on the ECG because that positive wave is coming towards us. But here, no such luck. So depending on the lead we're looking at, we can kind of localize where that problem might be. Now, Q waves take a long time to form, not a long time, but they don't form right away. It's not as sensitive for somebody having a STEMI, which we normally discuss in the acute setting where somebody's having an ST elevation MI, and we'll talk about that when we do the ST segment in a bit. These don't really form right away because the heart muscle lasts for a little while. It's ischemic, it hurts, we get chest pain, we see ST changes, but that muscle isn't necessarily dead yet. It's still conducting to a degree. But if somebody has completed their MI, or if somebody has an old MI in the past, like a year or two, whatever, long time ago as part of their past medical history, their ECG now might have Q waves just because that part of the heart muscle that lead is looking at is dead. And so we see these deep Q waves because what we're really seeing is that depolarization going away from that lead. I hope that makes sense. That's just all I wanted to talk about with Q waves. I don't want to get too into it or too crazy with it, but that's when we say we're looking for Q waves on an ECG, that's what we're looking at. Also very important, if you see Q waves, really nice to see an old ECG, which we probably don't have, but in the hospital, they're definitely going to want to compare to see if that's a new finding or an old one that fits with their history. So establishing a history of an old MI can be really important. So there you go, little chat on the Q wave. Hope that was exciting. Next, oh yeah, it's a big guy. I'll talk about the R wave. Talk to you soon. Bye.
The P wave is popping, kicking off the whole damn thing. The QRS comes next, making ventricles sing. It's to the T segment follows up. I hope it's in the line. If it's high, likely that it's cat lab time. T wave kicking at the end, resets the whole damn heart, and then we find ourselves right back at the start. Pump it.